If there's one thing I've learned in my business career, it's that I don't have all the answers. Look, I'm an ambitious guy, and I like to make progress fast. The secret to achieving success fast is to harness the brain power of other people in the community. That's what the Land.MBA Smart Bar is all about. As veteran investor Jesse Marchand said, the Smart Bar gave me the motivation and knowledge I needed to push through the tough times and accelerate my path to success. Seven-figure investor Mitch Milam likes to say, there's one meeting each week that I never miss. It's the Land.MBA Smart Bar. It's like happy hour with my land investing buddies. I always learn something. So if you want to network with like-minded people, make new friends, learn heaps, get questions answered, answer questions for others, learn new strategies, get accountability, and overall, get inspired while having a great time, check out the Land.MBA Smart Bar. For a short time, podcast listeners can get 20% off the annual plan, which comes to an insane $86 per month. Compare this to other programs which charge $250 a month or more. This is hands down the best deal you're going to find and the best way to invest in your success. So don't wait. Please go to land.mba/mastermind. That's land.mba/mastermind and use promo code podcast22 to join today. Hello, all you gorgeous entrepreneurial land investors. This is Howard Zonder with my partner in crime, David Van Steenkist. And this is the Land.MBA podcast.
Woohoo!
What's going on, big boy?
It's Friday, baby, and the weather is finally beautiful, and I'm going to get out and enjoy it.
Outstanding. Yeah. We actually hit 78 degrees yesterday.
Are you kidding me?
I thought spring had sprung, but then today came. So it's still the Northeast. Anywho, boy, things are moving fast in the world.
They are.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. It is nuts.
So starting with an interesting little tidbit from AI, I was reading this financial guy, and he was saying how can AI really eliminate jobs on Wall Street? And so recently, the Bureau of Labor Statistics came out with their latest jobs report. And so the guy went into ChatGPT and asked it to give an analysis of the jobs report. And it was pretty much as good or better than anything you're going to get off Wall Street. And then he kind of looked at the stats and he says, so how does this affect small business versus large business? And then it gave a whole analysis of that, and it was spot on. So, but the point of that is actually not the AI; it's the report itself. So we're starting to see actual weakness in the job market, and we've been hearing certainly about this in the tech sector. So far in 2023, Facebook announced 10,000 layoffs, Disney announced 7,000 cuts. Amazon, 18,000, Microsoft, 10,000, Google, I think it was like 12,000. Salesforce just announced that they're laying off 10% of their workforce. That's about 8,000 people. That's a lot of freaking people that are losing jobs. And so a lot of these people, especially when they look at the economy as it is today, and they look at all the alternatives to them in the tech field, they're saying, well, everybody's laying off, so where am I going to get a job now? And so a lot of them are starting to think the way we land investors have been thinking all along, which is maybe it would be a good idea to have a source of income that we control and that nobody can take away from us. Woohoo, what a concept.
Right. And, just to go back, if you look at those large behemoth companies on what they're reporting that they're laying off, well, how many feeder jobs are there to each one of those jobs on smaller ancillary companies, their vendors, their partners, the restaurants that are around the offices, the other businesses that are impacted by their layoffs. I heard a statistic that for every high-paying tech job, there's typically about 3 ancillary jobs associated with it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then
that's huge.
Yeah. the other thing is, if you look at some of these hot areas where uh, housing just went crazy, not even the hot areas, because you had a lot of, you also have to look at areas that have a lot of remote workers, because
Hmm.
they're going to be let go first. Because when they rehire, trust me, this remote worker thing is going to take a big hit. You're going to see more hybrid, and a lot of people demanded to go back in the office. When they rehire, it's going to be like, nope, you're coming back in the office.
That's interesting. I guess we'll find out. I mean, I think there's a bit of a dichotomy here, whereas if you bring them in the office, you would think that there's more productivity, that there's more communication and interaction, which will lead to more productivity. However, when they are remote, they can live in cheaper areas and they just become cheaper, and then you don't have to pay for the commercial real estate. So there's a cost benefit either way you go. It'll
And
be
they're,
interesting to see how they really
yeah,
play
and
it.
they're not commuting, etc. So there's in some cases there's higher productivity, but I think there's certain positions that, when you're working on projects, boy, it really helps to be in the office.
Sure.
I think things will migrate to somewhat of a hybrid, or three days in the office, something like that, 2 or 3 days in the office. But anyway, I think we're in the first inning of this, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all rolls out. That said, when we've been through this before, we always come out of it. It's cyclical. There are certain dynamics that at play that are going to affect things on the macroeconomic scale, differently. But again, people are resilient. I was to say Americans, but not just Americans, the whole world. People are resilient, and when they need to figure shit out to put food on the table and make a living and make some money, they'll do it. There might be some pain in the short term. And that all said, there's going to be massive opportunities, because millionaires and billionaires are made in the downturns. We're going to
Yeah.
have a lot of assets to be able to buy cheaply, namely real estate. I think that, of course, we're going to have massive opportunities in commercial real estate based on so many mortgages that have to be refinanced and will not be able to be refinanced profitably. You're going to have it's sort of in purgatory right now, but certainly the housing market, there's going to be a lot of opportunities there. If you look at 2008, that downturn it started, it feels like we're in 2007 right now to me, but it took all the way to 2012 for the housing market to bottom. And certainly we do have some different nuance as far as inventory that we didn't have back then. But now,
Yeah, I would say the drivers to me are very different from then. I mean, that was the subprime mortgage. So basically, people were underwater, the banks were underwater, but the interest rates stayed low even at that time. Now we've got inflation, interest rates. It's not a subprime problem, because I think the banks have really tightened up their loan requirements since the last crisis. But now you've got the interest rates going up, which is really causing people to say, maybe now's not the best time to sell my house, because it's going to cost me, a lot of money just on the interest when I try to buy something else. It's also really difficult for new entrants into the housing market. Um, so another crisis, but not this. I don't think it's the same crisis.
no, yeah, it's worse. It's
Yeah, right.
crazy.
So, but
It's way
what's
more
interesting
opportunity.
is that, and it's probably more in those areas where the tech industry has a very strong foothold. So that would be Northern California, maybe Salt Lake City,
Austin,
Denver,
yeah,
other in Dallas, and maybe to some degree in Dallas,
Austin.
wherever there's a lot of tech workers. I think many are losing their jobs, and others are probably a little bit scared right now. And now is certainly the time to be thinking about that alternative income stream that nobody can take away from you. And certainly, I think a lot of people are, and we talk to a lot of them. And it's interesting that there are a lot of reasons why people say, "Oh, I think I want to do this," but then they don't. Right. It's like, I want to do it, but then I'm not going to do it. And the objections or the concerns tend to all kind of flow into about five buckets. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. You know, five what we call limiting beliefs that, you know, all these people know what they should do, but what keeps them from actually doing it? What keeps people from actually entering a market like land flipping, which has proven itself to be, you know, just a great market with good, really good margins in it.
Yeah. And before we jump into those limiting beliefs, because I want, well, this also sort of points to a limiting belief, but I just want to sort of put a crescendo on what I was talking about before on opportunities with the different asset classes. The opportunity for land, I think we're going to be heading into a really good buying market. As soon as sellers start to capitulate a little bit and realize, hey, yeah, it's not crazy like it was. The past few years have just been nuts. Every piece of land just flew off the shelf, but it was more difficult to buy. And now, if you do have a nice quality piece of land, look, hey, even if we hit 10% unemployment, we still got 90% of people pulling income that are employed or self-employed. And so we're going to have amazing buying opportunities, and nice pieces of land marketed well still fly off the shelves. So but we're going to have the opportunity now to buy at really, really good prices. Because look, there's going to be people that need money, and if they got and their first priority is a roof over their head. If they've got some land that they get an offer on and they can turn that into quick cash, I think we're going to be picking up some phenomenal deals over the next couple of years here.
Agreed. Totally agree. And let's face it. I mean, even during the Great Depression, the at the top of the worst part of the Great Depression, the unemployment rate was 25%. Well, that still means that 75% were working. And there are always rich people, and rich people continue oftentimes to be rich. Yes, some people lose their fortunes, but many people do not. Yep. And you know, the smart money is always going to be looking for the opportunities. I think what's really interesting right now is the banking situation, because if people lose faith in the banks that they're in and they want to pull their money out, and it's really important, you know, it's not $250,000 per account, it's $250,000 per individual at the bank that's covered by the FDIC. Yeah, I mean, they basically bailed out everybody at SVP, but that's because they had to take care of Gavin Newsom and his buddies. Yeah. But will they do that for all banks? There's just not enough money to do that. So we know that's not going to be the case.
Can't even print that money.
And to the degree, and I think we're just at the beginning of this crisis too. I mean, most of these banking kinds of crises, it's kind of a slow burn, but it takes a few years before it really happens, before it really hits the high point. I don't think we've seen the end of this by a long term. To the degree regional banks are affected, if people start losing faith, they want to take their money out of that. They need a place to park their money. They need a place to put money that is going to maybe not make them increase their wealth, but certainly preserve their wealth. Yep. And the smart guys, you know, the top investors in both Europe and in the United States, keep saying that in times like these, you got to put it into hard assets. So they're talking precious metals, gold and silver, land, real estate, things like that. So land has perennially been a great store of value in otherwise tumultuous times.
And hey, especially when you're buying it at a huge discount, which is the way we do it and the way we teach to do it. Typically buying it at a big discount, and we're not relying on some sort of an improvement to force the equity. We're buying it from people who no longer want it, who kind of forgot about it, they inherited it, whatever, all those different reasons. And it is a fantastic store of wealth. And, you know, I wouldn't necessarily put it into desert squares, but nice, desirable properties that we're targeting now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think that, you know, during the pandemic, we say that during the pandemic, I don't know if it was completely because of the pandemic. I think a lot of it was because of what became the absolute lawlessness in big cities. People either wanted out or they wanted an escape hatch. And so land was literally flying off the shelves. But and as great as it has been over the last 3 years, you know, everything runs in cycles. Nothing lasts forever. But to come down from those heights doesn't bring it down into bad territory. It brings it back, at worst, it brings it back to normal territory, which is it's a business.
Yeah.
So if you're able to sell super high, you can afford to buy it higher than you might otherwise. If you think it's going to be harder to sell, then you just need to be obviously more careful on the purchase side and make sure you're not paying too much for it. And I think the other thing that happens in a market like this is you need to focus, as you just said, on quality. Quality always sells.
Yeah, always. And you know, that dynamic from the pandemic still exists. I mean, part of it, you know, not necessarily, I mean, you still have people that maybe didn't buy land then, but still desire to because they're thinking, well, this could happen again. And I want a place to bug out to. You know, I want a place that I can at least, you know, take an RV out to and stay on or, you know, build a bug out cabin.
Hide out from the zombies.
Exactly. Zombie apocalypse. But the other thing is, you know, what's still going on today. Okay, we don't have a pandemic, but we still have massive government overreach. We have, you know, a government that is trying to take our guns away. We have crime like hell. You know, we have all kinds of disruptions in the food and supply chain, which, I mean, don't get me started. There's a million conspiracies, but it is awful strange why, you know, food plants and railroads are blowing up. But it, you know, people want to have self-reliance. You know, I would love to, you know, be on a, you know, be able to bug out a piece of property if I needed to where I've got a greenhouse or a hot house. I got some chickens, you know, and
it's funny. That's the whole, that's how I got into land, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I was listening to a particular podcast. It was called the Follow the Money podcast. And his name is escaping me right now, but this was a guy that was a real successful guy in the Houston area, and he and his wife said, you know what, we don't want this this city life anymore. We don't want this you know, chasing the money thing. So they ended up buying a farm.
Uh-oh, hang on, I'm pausing. We lost your audio, Howard.
So that's kind of how I got into land. I was listening to this podcast called the Follow the Money podcast. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head right now, but he was an economist, and he worked down in Houston, and he was in the rat race. And he said, "I want out of the rat race," and he and his wife. And so they bought a farm in Arkansas because he just predicted that this was going to happen. He didn't know the timing of it. But he said, when it happens, I want to be self-sufficient. And so they basically have created a life of incredible self-sufficiency. And he does pretty very well, you know, through podcasting and the internets and his books and his media. So, but they're completely self-sufficient now. And that's where I first learned about land. And that's how I got into this. So, all right, let's get into our limiting beliefs. There's 5 of them. This is reasons why smart people are not acting. You know, a lot of, and there's one last final point is that, and I was in this case, I spent 20 years in the corporate world, and we talk about this idea of I want to get out, I want to be my own boss, I want to control my own destiny. But when you actually get the opportunity to do that, well, it's scary. And what happens is we become restrained, we restrain ourselves because of what are essentially our limiting beliefs. So what are they?
I've never started a business before.
Yeah, you never did you? Sounds scary, right? I don't know how to start a business. I don't know the legal stuff. I don't know how to create the articles of incorporation. I don't, all these things I don't know how to do. Do I have to get a lawyer? An accountant? I don't have any experience doing that. Well, yes, that's true. Before you drove a car, you didn't know how to drive a car.
Yep. Before
you rode a bike, you didn't know how to drive a bike.
Before you went on a
people,
date,
you can learn this. The question you have to ask yourself is, it's a drive issue. Are you willing to learn it? Are you willing to trade trade your time for money for the rest of your life? Yep. Are you willing to let other people get rich off of your brain and your efforts for the rest of your life?
Yep.
Let me ask you this really important question. What if you didn't actually have to jump into the deep end of cold water all at once? What if you could start by putting your toe in the water? That's really what we teach here is we teach think big, start small, scale fast. So, you don't want to throw yourself in the deep end. The fact of the matter is starting a small business is super easy, and millions and millions of people in the United States do it, and they're not smarter than you are. Certainly, certainly people coming out of the tech industry.
Yeah.
So, find a mentor, somebody that can help you through it. It's not that hard. And you start a business, there's plenty of ways that you can protect yourself from the risk of it. So I understand it. It's scary. You never did it before, but there's a lot of things you never did before.
Exactly. And always remember the principle, and I'll tap this book again, Who Not How.
That's right.
The author is Dan Sullivan. But, look, Who Not How I think we podcasted about this topic just by itself once, but, figure out who can help you. Is it a friend? Is it somebody else in the business? Or, do you want to, or just pony up and hire professional mentors like Land.MBA or somebody else in the business? It really, really helps you to feel confident, to lose the fear, to have accountability, and have a roadmap on, how to go on this journey.
Yep.
And, you look back in the day when we were in the industrial age, everybody, or pre-industrial age, actually, where it was agriculture and whatnot, everybody grew up. Okay, your kid's going to take over for you and run the family farm. And, your father was your mentor, your uncle, whatever. And then even in the industrial age, you had apprenticeships. Everybody had a mentor. And even today, if you go to work for a company where, you've got a mentor in that company. So let's go on to the next one. It's too much to learn.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this land business. I've never done real estate. I've been a tech guy. I develop code or whatever it is. I have 2 words for you. Black magic. Everything is black magic until you know how it works. I come out of the telecom industry. I mean, we take it for granted, but think about it. You could be walking down the street and you open up a phone that's not physically connected to anything. And forget about calling your friend or your wife down, in town. You can open up an app and instantly be talking to somebody in Pakistan or China or Japan or the other side of the world for free. I mean, we take that for granted, but think about what must be involved. How could that possibly happen that I could speak into this device and they can hear it on the other side of the world? It's just amazing. But the fact is, once you're in there and you start talking to the technology guys, it's not black magic. It makes perfect sense how it all works. And everything's black magic until you know how to do it. And then once you know how to do it, it's like, oh, that's all there is to it? Oh, I get that. Okay.
Just a process.
It's just a process. Every business is a process. Even a business that seems to be disorganized and thinks they don't have a process, they have a process. It's probably a bad process, but they have one. This is no different. The land business is a process. And once you understand the process, you'll realize it's certainly not so hard I think anybody can learn this business.
That's right.
It's really not an issue of learning it. It's an issue of desire and will.
Yep, it is. Yep. All right. The third one, I don't have money to invest.
It's true. Every self-made millionaire probably started broke. Yep. And so when you're starting, what you start with is belief, a dream, and the ability to sell that dream to people who do have money so that they split the cost with you. So they provide the sort of the capital equity and you provide the sweat equity. That's a starting point. But frankly, the financial entry into flipping land is not that great. I would definitely suggest you get education. No bias here, but strongly suggest Land.MBA. But the other thing that you're going to have to invest in is some marketing and the money that is going to be used to purchase properties, because we buy the land before we sell it. Well, guess what? Everything can be financed. There are people who finance education. We've got a partner that finances our education. There are people who finance properties. We have partners who finance properties. So everything can be financed. And that might also seem scary to people because now, oh my God, I'm playing with other people's money. Guess what? All the most successful people in the world, they're not trading just their own money. They're mostly playing with other people's money. They'll invest their money, but in business, they play with other people's money.
OPM, baby.
OPM. It's all about OPM.
OPM.
Let's see. It's really about. I want to go back to this idea of belief. Belief is the most important thing. I struggled with this, frankly. I mean, in my corporate career, I was extremely entrepreneurial, but I wasn't necessarily an entrepreneur. Difference between somebody that's entrepreneurial and somebody that's an entrepreneur is their willingness to take risk, and their willingness to take risk is completely dependent upon their belief in themselves to follow through no matter what and make it successful. Nobody has just, it's not like the running back that doesn't have any defenders on the other side trying to tackle him. There's always people trying to take you down. There's always circumstances. Everything's hard. But the people who win are the people who never give up, and they always find the workarounds. And if you don't believe that you can do that, you won't have the belief, and therefore that'll stop you. But if you do have the belief, then you will. So just a real quick story. This is more of a metaphor. But I was when I was a young buck in the Marine Corps, I was over in Okinawa, and I decided to take 30 Marines on some warrior training up in the northern training area of Okinawa. And so we get up there, and one of the things that we had set up was rappelling. And so there was this huge cliff up there, and what they built on the edge of the cliff looked like the runner from a helicopter. And so you would get on there, and you had the rope, and then you would jump off the rail, and you would rappel down the cliff. And I had a gunnery sergeant, a female gunnery sergeant, and she was terrified. I mean, absolutely terrified at the idea of doing this. She was in a technical specialty. She had never had to do anything like this. And so, I mean, here we are with 30 Marines, and she's a very senior enlisted person. So I pulled her to the side, and we had a little talking to, and I said, listen, you're the gunny. Everybody's looking at you. If you don't do this right now, they will lose respect for you. They will not follow you. You need to get up there. You need to get over there. You need to conquer your fear. And somehow she mustered it up. Mustard. No ketchup involved, just mustard. No, she mustered the courage to do it. And of course, courage is not the absence of fear. It's acting in the face of fear.
Absolutely.
And that's what she did. And she jumped off, and she did it. And when she got to the bottom, action conquers fear. She didn't have the fear anymore. She had the exhilaration of it. She ran all the way back to the top of the cliff and said, "Get out of my way, I'm going again."
Yep.
And that's what it is. So what stops most of us in these things is limiting belief based on some kind of fear, which is irrational. And we all have fears, but we have to face them. And the best way to conquer those fears is just by taking action. This is America. We'll find a way. You're going to eat. You're going to have a roof over your head. Just do it.
Hey, even I sometimes get fearful. If business gets slow, if I got a deal I'm not sure about, things like that, I get fear. And sometimes I get too caught up in my head, thinking about it too much. I get analysis paralysis. And then, finding a way to be able to change my state, my mentality, my physiology, and get back on track. And it starts with taking some sort of action.
Always. And absolutely right.
You're exactly right. Action conquers fear, because it's really easy when you're a small entrepreneur to when things start to get a little slow, go, maybe I should go get a job. Maybe I should play it safe. And instead of saying, no, let's freaking hunker down and focus.
That's right. And what we're seeing in the tech world, at least right now, and probably other in the banking industry, is that getting a job is anything but safe right now.
Yeah. You know, I mean, what we're going through right now just puts an exclamation mark on the point on why everybody needs some sort of a side hustle, a separate stream of income. I know we're going a little bit long, but I'm gonna do an abbreviated part of this story of my life. In 2016, when I had been flipping land for about a year and a half as a side hustle, and I was starting to get some momentum, and I got laid off from my 6-figure sales job, and at a time when we were remodeling our house and moved out, and I was paying, rent and mortgage, totally unsuspected. It was about a week before Christmas, and I got that layoff, and I'm like, well, oh shit, good thing my land business is doing all right. But so that would have kept me afloat. But I left my phone on Christmas Eve, and I answered, and I had one buyer buy 3 pieces of property, and I made about 70 grand profit on that. And boom, it took a lot of stress off. And we could enjoy the rest of the holidays, so peeps, you see all this layoffs going on. You are nothing but a freaking number. I don't give a shit what your position is at that company. You're nothing but a number. You need something going on the side so that if you do lose that job, you've got some sort of extra income. You're not just like, oh crap, I got this house I just bought last year that I paid too much for, and I have a big mortgage, and I got a car, and I got to pay for the kids' private school. You're all of a sudden not going to zero income. You've got something.
Absolutely. Now, maybe you still have your job, and you've got the family, and you've got responsibilities. And maybe the next problem you have, the next limiting belief is, I just don't have the time for this. I just don't have the time. Is that really true? David, is that really true? I'm sorry, I don't have the time for this.
If I look at my screen time and I actually figure out how much time I blow on surfing online, watching YouTube that I'm not learning from, it's just entertainment.
Yeah.
That I'm farting around on social media or texting people. I bet I could carve out 1 hour per day and 2.5 hours per day on the weekends. I'm just betting I could do that.
And 1 hour per day and 2.5 hours per day on the weekend is how many hours?
10 hours, baby.
10 hours. You could carve out 10. You can carve out 10 hours per week. If you believe that the best way to provide independent security, financial security first, and then financial freedom second, is if you don't think that's worth 10 hours per day, then we probably can't help you. But if you feel the pain, you'll find 10 hours per day, because that 10 hours per day will be the best 10 hours per day you could possibly spend. Or 10 hours per week, rather, excuse me.
Absolutely.
All right. The fifth limiting belief, and this is just a misconception, frankly, is that most people who are not familiar with real estate or land in particular think, according to this very common phrase, all real estate is local. But is that true, David?
Not in this business. I mean, I don't have to go inspect the foundation or the drywall or figuring out what needs to be remodeled, because we're buying land. There's no improvements that we're doing. We're just buying it way below market and flipping it slightly below market so we can sell it fast. And there's no tenants or termites or any of that stuff to have to get on site to worry about. Now, what I do as part of my due diligence is the last thing I do, once all the stuff that I can do online, the liens and encumbrances and all that stuff, and we send a drone pilot out there, in which I'm going to use those photos for marketing anyway. And you can say, well, what do I spend $400 on the drone pilot? And then they find something and I don't buy the property. Well, guess what? That $400 was a pretty damn good investment, because it kept you
right
from buying a crappy property. And I got to say, in around 300 properties done, I think that's happened to me once, where I, just was out the 400. It's cost of doing business. Occasionally that's going to happen.
This is the people who have, where this is the biggest fear and the biggest limiting belief, are actually realtors.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh, well, this could be wrong and that could be wrong. And you can only tell so much from a Google Earth and these other properties. Why should these people have confidence that a property on the other side of the country that they cannot physically go see is a safe investment?
Yeah. Well, again, who, not how? You hire somebody to go out there and put eyeballs on it with a drone. Is somebody dumping on the property? Is the access not what it shows on the satellite views? Things like that. Now, that said, if you're dealing in higher end properties, then that's a different part of the business model. You might get on an airplane and fly out there yourself on that one, or develop trusted partners in the areas, good realtors and things like that. But the vast majority of this business, where you're doing bread and butter properties in the sale price of, let's say, $25,000 to $80,000, where you're buying them for 10 to 40, you don't need to go see them. You can do everything online, and so that opens up the entire country for you to invest. 3,100 counties.
3,100.
Is that right? 1,100 counties? Isn't that the right number?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you just put the comma in there when you said it. 3,100 counties, 1.9 billion acres in the lower 48, of which only 6% are developed. And that's a lot of land out there. So we've gone a little bit long. We thank you for sticking with us in this. I know we were being a little bit flip, but that's just because we were hoping to be a little bit entertaining. Hopefully we were a little entertaining. But let's just do a very quick review. 5 limiting beliefs that you really need to guard yourself against, because they will stop you from achieving what could be a phenomenal outcome for you. First one, but I've never started a business before. Second one, there's too much to learn. Third, I don't have the money to invest. 4, I don't have the time. And 5, land is too expensive in my area. They're all limiting beliefs. And every problem, the best thing about a problem is once you've identified it, now you can brainstorm about the solutions, and there's always a solution. So we encourage you to value your problems as opportunities to overcome them. We hope that you'll feel that land flipping is an opportunity for you. If you think it is, please give us a call. We'd love to chat with you. And have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time on the Land.MBA podcast.
Adios.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, had a bit of fun, and walked away with some actionable insights that you can apply to your business. Dave and I have got some great content and interviews planned, so don't forget to rate and review, and of course subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. If we mention any interesting links or tools, you'll find them in the show notes. To learn more about Land.MBA, visit our website at, wait for it, Land.MBA. See you next time on the Land.MBA podcast.